Welcome to your Farm and Home Show. My name is Joanna Coles, and today we're visiting with a familiar face, Colby, who was the intern here last summer, but now he's the Allen County Extension Agent for Agriculture. So today we're going to talk about a plant that's of great importance in Kentucky.
Absolutely, yeah. So the tree of heaven is one of the more prominent invasive species here in Kentucky, similar to maybe the bush honeysuckle. You're going to see it a lot, especially this time of year now that it's fully bloomed out and the trees are leafed out on roadsides and fence rows. It's very common to see around these parts.
Now, tree of heaven kind of gives off an idea that this is a good plant, but it's not.
Exactly, and that's kind of how a lot of invasive species kind of started. This plant was brought over for its ornamental value. It does produce flowers, and our leaflets have nice red stems down the middle, so it's a bright plant that flowers and everything, so people wanted it for the ornamental value, but similar to kudzu and different things like that, it quickly got out of control. And so now it's an invasive species because of the impact that it has on the landscape around it. It comes in groups because of the way it grows and the way it reproduces. They like to come in little groups. They're called couples. And so you'll see an entire fence row likely with these plants just lined up all the way up and down. And it sends out signals through the roots and through the leaves to reproduce very quickly. And a lot of times the people will want to go in and try to cut it down. And that's exactly how it sends out more signals to be able to reproduce even more. It'll send out little root shoots. If it feels a sense of injury, or if somebody goes to cut it down or spray it, that's when it sends out new shoots to really increase that reproduction and really spread out across the landscape.
So Colby, if we can't cut it to kill it, how do we control this plant?
So you can cut it, but it's one of those things you have to be precise with your timing, how you cut it and when you cut it. So just coming in with a chainsaw or some loppers and mowing it down is not the way to do it. You want to be particular about your timing. You don't want it to be in that stage where it's fully fruited out and developed with seeds, because then it's fully mature and it's ready to send out those signals. So kind of want to do it in an off season where it's not really in bloom, and the earlier the better as far as diameter and size. You want to catch it a little bit immature so that way it's more effective. But a lot of times they recommend to girdle the tree around the bottom. So just take off a little bit of the bark and then spray it with a triclopyr or a glyphosate. So that way it kind of kills it from the base of the tree down into the roots. So when it gets into the roots, it'll kill those roots first to prevent those offshoots from coming up.
Of a greater concern, it's a host plant for one of the insects that we're concerned about.
Absolutely. So the spotted lanternfly is one of the newer invasive species we have here in the state. Just a couple years back, we started seeing more and more of it. And it's kind of the host plant. Like we talk about the monarch butterfly and milkweed. They kind of co-evolve together, and that's their preferred choice to lay their eggs and raise caterpillars and then grow into butterflies. So that's the same way with tree of heaven. You'll see little egg clusters that are laid by the spotted lanternfly on these trees, and that's the preferred plant to reproduce. So as long as there's more and more tree of heaven, there's more and more space for those spotted lanternfly to come in and invade.
Yeah, and as of the time of filming, we haven't found those spotted lanternflies in our area, but it is in Kentucky.
Absolutely, yeah, it is in Kentucky and moving rapidly. Like we said, there is tree of heaven here. It's very common on any roadway, so likely as the spotted lanternfly spreads, it could be something that comes into the area. And it's very particular on your stone fruits, your peaches, and different things like that. It'll leave behind a fragrant substance. It's kind of a powdery substance, and so that not only degrades the tree or the fruit, but it's going to attract other insects, and it can be really bad for some of those crops.
And some of these states that have spotted lanternfly populations in them, they have quarantines, movement quarantines. It's an economic loss not only for the farmer, but also for transport of goods.
Absolutely, and that's how a lot of these things happen too, is this globalization, the movement of goods, because the little egg clutches can stick on different fruits or different branches. It can stick on the sides of containers, and then they move all across the globe. And so you might think that you're completely fine being across the country, but like I said, all it takes is one small container, one small egg cluster or batch of insects to travel across the country, and then you're introduced to this species.
So Colby, if people think they might have this on their woodlands or in their fence rows, how's the best way to get it identified?
Absolutely. So we want to take a bunch of pictures, as many as possible. The insects, they'll have brown wings with some little splotches, and they'll have a set of red wings too. So they're pretty easy to identify if you can get a picture of the full mature insect. But also if you have tree of heaven, inspect those, and there'll be little egg clusters on the sides. Take pictures, and then just for safe measures, just go ahead and destroy that. That's what they recommend, is destroy those egg clutches to keep the spread of those insects as low as possible.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.